Hello students and welcome to the lecture. So students, as we know that we are covering the financial system, and basically in the previous lecture we had started the series of the Indian stock market. Okay, and we had discussed about the stock market introduction and all, and you can say these were the topics we had scheduled for the discussion, and so far we had completed the introduction part, and basically we had started the National Stock Exchange. Okay, where we had taken an overview of the National Stock Exchange. We had talked about the technology we call NEET. Okay, so now before starting this lecture, it's my question to you: what is the full form of NEET? 10 seconds I'm allotting you to give the answer, and your time starts now. It's 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. The time's up. So the full form of NEET is National Electronic Automated Technology. Okay, so please keep this thing in your mind. So about NEET we had discussed in the previous lecture. We had discussed the types of it, or you can say type of the markets included in the NEET, like the normal market, odd lot market. We had seen the auction market. In the regular market or the normal market we had seen the 4 types. Okay, and in the auction market we had taken the overview of, you can say, the 3 major participants, like the initiator, competitor and the solicitor and all. Okay, so basically right now we are going to proceed further. So here basically we are going to talk about the National Stock Exchange market segments. NSE offers trading in the various market segments, including the equity, derivatives and debt instruments. The equity segments allow trading in stocks of listed companies, while the derivative segments includes future and options contract based on various underlying securities. The debt segment facilitates tradings in government securities, corporate bonds and the other debt instruments. So right now what we have done, we had just you can say taken an overview of it. Okay, so here basically are the 2 main terms: market and then plus segments. Okay, and these 2 terms basically formulate a one common term which we call as a market segment, right? So now it's my question to you, like, what do you mean by the market segment? Okay, and what do you mean by the particular word segment? If we talk about the market, we had just taken an example that market is basically, you can say, the platform of buying and selling of things and other areas. All right, but segment is basically, you can say, the classification, or you can say classified area of any particular place. Okay, like you can say in your colleges and your school, for your colleges, suppose there will be a department of BBA, okay, MBA, all right, BCom, MCom, all right, all these are the part of the management, right? Management and business studies. Okay, so this management and business studies is basically any particular thing or the area, but these are the segments of it, right? Similar things happen with the stock market. Like, stock market is a market, National Stock Exchange is a particular market, but it's having the segment, like the equity segment, like the derivative segments, like the debt instruments. Okay, so what does it mean by the equity, derivatives and the debt instruments? We have to understood it. Okay, so if we go by the equity, then you can say equity is basically, by the simple definition, first I will give the definition, then I will explain you the concept. Equity simply means shareholding, okay, provides percentage in ownership. Okay, so equity is just a shareholding provides percentage in ownership. How? If we talk about any organization, so we know that every organization having its 100% shares, right? That's what we had discussed in the previous lectures also. All right, and the ownership of that particular organization depends upon the maximum percentage of shareholding. Okay, like out of these 100% shares, how many shares have been holding by someone? If the shareholding is more than 51%, it means that the particular party or an individual which holds these shares will be declared as an owner, right? So this is basically the 51% shareholding, but we also call it as an 51% equity. Okay, so equity is basically the shareholding. All right, the much equity someone hold in any organization, the much rights in the ownership the person holding. All right, or you can say, suppose if the company launches the shares, or you can say 20% shares in the market, so this will be termed as 20% equity in the market. Got it? So this is what we call as equity. Equity is the shareholding, provides the percentage in the ownership. All right, the person who is holding the 20% equity or the 20% shares of the XYZ will be having 20% ownership. Got it? So I hope that you have gotten idea regarding the equity. Now the derivatives. What do you mean by the derivatives? So you can say derivatives. Okay, derivatives are basically, you can say, or no future contexts, basically you can say shares or stocks traded between parties on the basis of future contracts, okay, or future value. These are called the derivatives, share or stocks traded between the parties on the basis of the future value. For example, you can say, suppose there are two person, this one and this one. Okay, this person is basically the seller, or not seller exactly, you can say the giver. Okay, this person isn't taker. All right, so you can say, suppose this person having some shares, or you can say having the 10 shares. All right, this person holding the 10 shares. Now it's a task of this person that, or you can say, suppose it's a condition of the task, it's a condition that this person thinks that might be the value of these 10 shares will be higher in the near future and whatsoever. So what he did, he transferred the ownership of these 10 shares to this person. Okay, this is the giver, this is the taker. All right, so these 10 shares have been now transferred to that particular person. Okay, now there are two cases after this. Two cases after this. Case 1, case 2. Case 1, When value goes up, case 2, when value goes down. Okay, so suppose when the shares have been provided to the taker, the value goes up, means as it was predicted that might be the shares value will be higher than the value goes up. So what will happen? The taker will give another share to the giver. Okay, it means that if the 10 shares which have been handed over to the taker, the values goes up, so now the taker will give some other shares to the giver. But the second scenario, when the value goes down, in such a case, what will happen? Giver now give other shares to the taker. Okay, so these are the two scenarios. If the values, instead of going up, going down, then now the giver will give another shares to the takers to balance the loss. All right, so that's how the system works. Okay, first case, values goes up, taker will give another share to the giver. All right, when value goes down, giver now gives another share to the taker. Now we had just you can say taken an overview, or you can say taken understanding of the mechanism. Now it's a question about the benefits. What is the benefit of it? Like why these guys are doing this thing? Okay, so first we will take the from the giver's point of view. Okay, if the giver provides the 10 share to the taker, okay, and promise that the value of these 10 shares will be goes up, and if the value goes up, now the taker will give some high value shares to the giver in response. Okay, so suppose these 10 shares will having the value of 10,000. Okay, but when the value goes up, now the taker will give some other shares, suppose the 20,000 value. So if we talk about the giver's profit, then the giver's profit is rupees 10,000. Why? Because the giver had provided the shares worth rupees 10,000, now receives the shares of 20,000. It's a giver's benefit. Taker's benefit, the shares the taker took in the value of 10,000 is now getting higher and higher, so he will get the profit from here. But if we talk about the another situation, it means that if the taker who had bought the shares for 10,000 and the value instead of going up goes down, it means rupees 5,000 is now the value. Okay, so what will happen? Now the giver will give some other shares to the taker as a compensation of loss beared by the taker, just because the giver promised that the share value will be goes up but the share value goes down. Okay, to balance the loss. So this is the benefit for the giver and the taker. All right, both get benefit if the things according this one and this one. All right, if this one, then the both will in the benefit, but in the this one only the taker will be in benefit. Why? Because he will get the compensation of his loss, but the giver has to give some extra which is not in his capacity. Derivatives clear? Now the debt instruments. Debt instruments, basically you can say, okay, equity and derivatives clear now. Debt instruments, basically the investment in the government securities, corporate bonds and the other debt instruments. Debt instruments you can also call it taking loan, or you can say generated capital from outside. Okay, this is called the debt. All right, government securities we had already discussed in the previous lecture also, previous to previous lecture basically, that the government generally making the budget, they promise that they will spend this much but revenue is less, so that's why they try to you can say arrange the money from the investors by issuing the securities and all. So this is basically the loan or the capital generated from the outside. All right, similar like the corporate bonds, the corporates and the companies also issued the bonds same like the government securities and all right, but the things are different as per the government securities. Why? Because the government securities are the secured way, there is no chance that the government will default it, but when we talk about the corporates and the companies, there are chances that they will be defaulted. Okay, so now let's move forward. Now we having the term global reach. What do you mean by it? The NSE having a significant global impact with its flagship index, the Nifty 50, being widely followed by the investors around the world. Now, it is a very, very important thing we have seen here. All right. If the question asks you index of NSE, or you can say index maintained by the NSE, what should be the answer? The answer should be Nifty 50. Got it? So keep this thing in your mind. Nifty 50 index futures are also traded on the Singapore Stock Exchange (SGX), allowing the international investors to gain exposure to the Indian equities. This global reach enhances the NSE's reputation and influence in the global financial market. Why? Because if we talk about the 1992, when the National Stock Exchange introduced in the country. Okay, prior to this, there was another year, 1991. Okay, in the 1991, we had already discussed that we had got an policy which we called as New Economic Policy, or you can say the liberalization privatization and the globalization. Okay, that was the era. All right, so if we talk about the globalization, then we had discussed that globalization is basically, you can say, engagement of domestic market with foreign market, right? The same thing happens with the stock market. Okay, because the stock market is also in the terms of the globalization, so you can say the National Stock Exchange or in short NSE is not only limited towards the internal or the domestic investors, but it is also open up for the foreign investors, which we called as an FII in the short. Full form of FII, what do you mean by the FII? So basically it is known as the foreign institutional investments. Okay, foreign institutional investment FII, in which what's happened, basically the foreign players, instead of directly invested in India, okay, they generally buys the shares in the stock of the company. For example, you can say, suppose this is A and this is India. All right, So what generally happen? Suppose they want to invest 50,000 US dollars. Okay. So there are two ways to invest it. First is called the FDI. Second is called is FII. FDI stands for foreign direct investment. Okay. And FII stands for foreign institutional investment. Okay. So if we go by the first one, foreign direct investment, then basically if the A directly invested the 50,000 US dollars in the India, it means that they open the land, they purchase the land, they open the factory, they purchase the plant and machinery and all the things, then it is a FDI. And basically it is very, very important because right now it's an inflow of the currency, foreign currency into the country. And because these investments are usually higher in comparison with the FII. All right. And this generates the direct employments in the country. But the second way after this, the second way is the foreign institutional investment, which means that directly instead of directly invested the $50,000 in India, they invested it into some company. Let's suppose the company name is XYZ. Okay. And now the XYZ will carry on its operations and all the things, and the returns generated will be go back to the A as per the promised returns. Okay. This is called the foreign institutional investment because right now they are not directly invested in the country, but they are investing in the existed company of the country so that their money could be saved. All right. So there are two ways. So basically the NSE helps in the FII. Okay. Those foreign investors who want to invest into their country, but they are not so confident in the FDI. It means that making the foreign direct investment. So thus they could go with the FII, which means that they could buy the listed shares and the securities of the Indian companies through the NSE indexes. Okay. And that's why we had seen that NSE having the global reach. This global reach enhances the NSE's reputation and influence in the global financial market because the global investors are now open to invest into the country through the NSE. But it is also risky. Why? Why it is risky? Because if we talk about the globalization, okay, then globalization is basically the mutual thing. Why? Because remember, whenever the FII or you can say the foreign investments come to the India, and we had already discussed in the foreign exchange rate that the Indian currency is usually in the depreciation in comparison with foreign currencies. Why? Because to promote the exports and make our goods and services cheaper for their customers to buy. Okay. So that's why whenever the foreign currency invested in the stock exchange markets and all, basically they push the values, okay, of the shares listed in the stock markets, and that's what called we as a illusion of wealth. Okay, why? For example, suppose if the company XYZ listed the share worth rupees 5,000. Okay, so this share value will be based on the you can say analytical report and performance of the company XYZ. Okay, but what happened? Any foreign company, let's suppose the ABC. The ABC infused the foreign investment in the XYZ. Due to this, what happened? Due to the high value, the value of the shares rises from 5,000 to 10,000 now. Okay, the condition shifted. Earlier it was 5,000, now it's become 10,000. So the person like me and you who is investing in the stocks and all, he will see that there is a surge of rupees 5,000 in the short duration. Okay, maybe the person is capable enough to know the reason, that the reason was FII. Maybe. But if the person is not so capable, which is usually happen, so what will happen? He will just see that value. Instead of finding out the reason, he will believe in that value and he will start investing in the shares. And when the inflow directed towards the XYZ, the shares value will be goes higher and higher. That suppose it will become 15,000, then it will become 20,000 and all. So this is called the illusion of wealth, because the shares value is going higher just because of infusion. Okay, not because of the performance of the XYZ. And it creates a bubble. And when the bubble blasts, the reality comes in the picture. Okay, and this is the first case. Second case is the value of minusing. Okay, for example, you can say like the ABC invested the money or infused the money. Right now, the ABC taken back the money. So what will happen? This is the reverse case. The value listed was 20,000, but because the foreign investors are now withdrawing their money and because their currency is in the higher denomination, so that's why the impact is higher in comparison with the Indian currency. Okay, 20,000 was the share price, but as the money was withdrawing, it became 15,000. So any investor like me and you, again, he will just see that there is a loss of 5,000 in a quick time. He won't go after the actual situation. He will just see the what is presented in before of him. So what he will do, he will try to withdraw his money because he will think that the company is in the loss. He will withdraw, then the value again goes down, 15,000 to 10,000, then 5,000. So what is happening? Just because of the diffusion of the foreign direct investment, foreign institutional investment, the value is decreasing. It is not based on the performance of the XYZ. It is based on the FII, right? So that kind of situations creates the illusion of wealth and the illusion of losses. Okay, so that's why, as I have told you, the FII is important for the India, but it is also dangerous and you can say risky, because as I have portrayed a picture in front of you, that just a minute change in this particular, you can say, area of the series could cause a huge impact on the Indian market. All right. Thereafter, if we talk about the market regulation, the NSE is regulated by the Securities and Exchange Board of India, SEBI in short, which oversees the functioning of the stock exchanges in India. SEBI ensures that the NSE complies with the regulatory requirements and maintains the market integrity. Because the National Stock Exchange is dealing in the securities exchange in the market, and we know that SEBI is an apex institution which is entitled, and you can say which is provided with the duties to control the exchange market in the country. So ultimately the SEBI will become the regulator of the National Stock Exchange. Okay, so students, basically in this lecture we had finished till the market regulation, and we had seen the global presence and all. In the next lecture we will continue from here. Till then, just revise all the facts and figures we had discussed in this lecture. Be ready for another lecture. With this note, let's end this lecture, and what we say thank you.